Hi everyone, welcome to another Gypsy Nurse Live event. I'm Rachel, the online community manager for the Gypsy Nurse, and today we'll be discussing something that not a lot of people are talking about or very open to talking about. It's a very sensitive subject and kind of taboo in the industry, but our guest today was a dual diagnosed with major depressive disorder and severe opioid dependence. She was her own drug dealer. During the 2 years she abused drugs, she has been drug-free since 2016, and would like to share her story with nurses who may be spiraling out of control and don't think there is a way out. So I'd like to please welcome Misty Lack, who's here to discuss mental health and drug addiction within the community. So let me bring her on. Hi, Misty.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us and for reaching out to me. Session. You reached out about a couple months ago, maybe a month or so ago, and I think a lot of people are scared or worried to talk about addiction for fear of losing their license. So thank you so much for your bravery and transparency by coming on here today to discuss this, so that way some people don't feel as alone. So thank you so
Right.
much.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. If you want to tell us about yourself, kind of like your background, everything about you, so that way people kind of know who's talking.
Okay. My name is Misty. I've been a nurse for 22 years. I didn't start school till I was like 29 years old. Um, and it's just something I never thought I could do. And then once I started going to school and was like, oh my gosh, I get to be a nurse. And it's just really been a passion and a lifelong dream. And I really think it's my purpose in life. I am 52 years old. I've never been married. I've got an amazing niece that today's her 20th birthday.
Aw.
Yes, and then I have a nephew that passed away in 2020. He was a elevator mechanic and fell down an elevator shaft, which was so traumatic. But and I was able to go through that clean, which is a big deal. But other than that, I live in Oklahoma. I'm in recovery, and I love Jesus, and I'm just grateful to come and talk to you guys today.
We're grateful to have you here today too. So what's your story? What kind of brought you here? And
I in 2014, my grandmother passed away, and that's kind of when I started spiraling. But I had a nurse that I worked with that I reported for diverting because I was so hyper vigilant about that stuff. When I was in nursing school, I'm a pain patient. I had a car wreck, broke my neck, dislocated my hip, and was on pain medication for 27 years. And so I was really hyper about not ever wanting to put myself in that situation.
yeah,
So I reported a nurse for diverting, and they let her walk away. Nothing happened. And that just kind of stuck in my head, and then it wasn't within a couple of months that instead of throwing it or wasting it, I put it in my pocket, and I came home and I used it. I did an IM injection, and then within 2 weeks, I was using it IV, and it just spiraled. It was probably one of the most. I mean, I just was disgusted with myself. But I ended up changing departments, and the nurse that reported me, they let me quit. Nothing happened. And 2 years later, the nurse that reported me was found dead on the bathroom floor with a needle in her arm from an overdose. So that's why I want to share my story, because had the first nurse been held accountable, would I have went down this path? I don't know. If I would have been held accountable, would she have went down that path? I don't know. But I think it's a story that needs to be told, because there's I mean, and here in Oklahoma, it's what we call peer when you have to answer to the Board of Nursing. And just in my small group, there was 15 of us. And there's probably 6 or 7 of those groups. So that's, almost 100 nurses maybe that are in the peer program at any given time. So but it's still not talked about,
Yeah.
So I just want people to know that this is what it looks like. I worked with these nurses for 15 years, and they would have gone to bat. They did go to bat for me. Misty, that is not Misty. Misty is not doing that. And I was. And I banked on that because I knew that nobody, that they didn't want to see that in me because they love me so much,
Yeah.
So that's my why.
Definitely. Well, what keeps you, now that you're clean and everything, what keeps you going? What's your reason why you stay clean?
One is a daily amends that I make to my profession and to the patients. Not to ever do that again. Because, I the whole Nurse Practice Act, I took advantage of my license, and I took advantage of a lot of people. And I can't do that anymore. I've removed myself from the bedside. I do dialysis now, which there's no narcotics. I don't know if I could give a patient pain medicine and watch the look in their eyes, and that's just truth.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to. I just, there's enough of us nurses to go around. I don't have to be in that scenario anymore.
Yeah.
I go to meetings. I'm in a 12-step program that holds me accountable. I have a sponsor. I have a therapist that I've seen for 6 years. And I just, I live out loud, so I'm held accountable. A lot of the 12-step programs, well, all of the 12-step programs, it's, anonymity. You don't have to, especially in our profession. You're not going to go to a meeting and people are not going to blast you. But that's why I keep my 12-step separate, because I don't represent a 12-step program. I represent Misty, a recovering drug addict that's, a nurse also. But it's just where I'm at now. And as far as, when I first entered the program, the thought of not being able to take pain medicine it almost crippled me, because I'm like, I've got serious injuries. I can show you my MRIs. And, the lady was like, Misty, I'm sorry. You cannot be a nurse in this program and take narcotics. And, 6 years and 3 months later, and I take ibuprofen, and I'm in pain sometimes, but I can do it without narcotics.
That's great. Yeah, I was going to ask you what, what you were doing to kind of subside the pain that you've had, all those years. And I'm glad that ibuprofen is probably.
I really have to pay attention to how many hours I worked, in a week. I can't overdo it. About a year ago, I was hurting really bad, and I called my sponsor, and I was like, I'm going to have to go get something for pain relief. And she said, Misty, did the pain medicine ever help? And I said, no. She said, so you're still going to be in pain, and you're going to be fiending for dope. And I was like, damn, yes. So I get massages regularly. I should do more stretching, but I don't. But, during that last pain thing, I called probably 23 people just to say, because I just had to be held accountable, and talking about it makes it better. When I'm complaining about being in pain, it's a red flag that, because that's all I think about is getting rid of it. And the only way that had worked for 20 something years was pain medicine, or not even, it didn't even work, but still. But now today, I'm just able to, and it's not going to last more than a couple of days anyway, till I get through that. But I'm not ever pain free. I'm always going to have a little bit of pain, but that's part of my life.
Makes sense. Yeah, I'm glad that you could get a hold of your sponsor and have them talk you through that, because I think that is, definitely someone to talk you off of that line is always just so important, especially during recovery or any type of, anything you're going through. It's usually nice to have someone that's like, hey,
Mhm.
well, you did write an article for the gypsynurse.com, so we appreciate that too. But in the article, you said that your stories for those suffering from addiction. What would you just say to someone right now who's suffering, they're watching, and they're just wanting some information? What would you, what would you like to say to them?
I mean, I understand. I mean, you wake up in the morning and you tell yourself you're not going to do it today, and then within minutes, you're in the Pyxis, you're getting medicine, and you're back at it. You have to reach out for help. Um, I used to work with a nurse in the ER that was also an attorney, and I was able to reach out to him. And I mean, I got questioned on a Wednesday. He had me in his office on Thursday, and Friday morning I was sitting in front of here reporting my story, or telling on myself, because and I was scared to death. I'm like, he had another nurse call me, and I called back and I was like, how honest do I need to be? And the nurse said, I mean, as honest as you're ready to be, because secrets keep us sick. And I had to,
Froze up a little bit.
I'm sorry.
Oh, you froze up a little bit. You said you had to.
I had to tell her, I mean, everything I did. And the lady took a big, deep breath and exhaled, and she just said, Misty, it's so refreshing to sit across from somebody that's not trying to cover up, because
Yeah.
we come up with tons of excuses. It wasn't me. I don't know what happened. I forgot it and brought it home and forgot to bring it back. That happens to some, but there's a lot of us that are using. And but I went and I was scared. I didn't. It took me. I had to go to a 90-day treatment process. I was in the peer program for about 2.5, almost 3 years. It's hard to find a job because there's such a stigma that goes with addiction.
Mm-hmm.
But we are held so accountable. I mean, you have to call a number every day. You have to drug test. There's a lot that goes with it. But for me, nursing was my purpose, and I was willing to do whatever I needed to do to be here today.
Yeah.
But I think that you just have to look into your own board and ask about the, drug diversion program, and just kind of ask around.
That would be good. Yeah. Do you think you were talking about how you were just like honest, when you went to the boards? Do you think that really helped you in your kind of like your case into getting, started?
It helped me. And I asked her, I was like, so how expensive is this going to be? Like, DUI expensive? And she said, Misty, you've been doing drugs free for 2 years. It's time to pay up. And I was like, okay. Yeah. But it did help me. It helped me. It helped me build that platform. It helped me to, basically, pull up my britches and start the grind, because it's walking through recovery. Those first few hours, days, it's hard, and you've got to get your support system together.
Yeah, I think that's the most important, is that support system. You got to have someone on your side, and enough people to kind of, if one person you don't want to call, you have another person that's going to pick up as well. So I think that's super important. Many like yourself are afraid of losing their job, or more importantly, losing their license, and don't want to get help for the fear of that loss, which may deter them from finding out the first step. What do you think would be the first step for someone who's looking to get help? I know you mentioned, just asking about different programs through the hospital, but what would be, that very first step?
If I would have been brave enough, I would have went into my manager's office and because I was asked, and this is back at the job that they let me walk away. When I was asked, I would have admitted where I was, because then that way I would have had my job and insurance and been able to go through this a little with a little bit more grace. But usually the hospital should have resources, but not always. But I think you look up drug diversion, and I even got on Facebook or looked for groups like drug diversion nurses, and I just reached out and asked, you found me. I'm another recovering nurse. You can ask, and you're not going to say it on this live platform because we're worried about getting in trouble. So ask me, reach out, start going to meetings. Just tell your story. Tell on yourself.
That's always good, because you're going to end up getting told on anyways. So either have it be on your side, or with you a little bit of control, or where it's just completely out of control, where like you said, you lost your job, you didn't have any of those benefits or anything like that. So I think that's super important.
And the scariest part is that, two of the nurses that were in my peer group, my nurse support group, were found in a bathroom because they shot up too much and were passed out on the unit. One of the nurses was an ICU nurse, and when she woke up, she was in a bed in the ICU.
Wow.
And show's over. It's like you pretty much told on yourself anyway.
Yeah.
And just like the nurse that reported me, though, it ended in death, and that's the scary part.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, what would you say to that fellow nurse, kind of like similar to the one that reported you, or like coworkers? What do you want them to know about nurses with addiction? In your article, you said that some may look at you and discuss, just drug addict, all of that, which I assume others would do the same about their own coworker. They might gossip or anything like that with an addiction. But although they're breaking the rules and the law, they're still a human who needs love over that judgment. So what would you say to that nurse that might be judging that other nurse that knows they're an addict, or what would be your?
We're nurses. If you see something, say something. I'm not. If you were to walk up to me and say and accuse me or ask me, I was going to deny it. But it has to go on up the chain. It might be enough to say something to a nurse, but I doubt it, because we are in the grips of addiction. If you're a nurse and you're still in dope and shooting up in the bathroom, you've already crossed the line. It's not going to be just it's not going to be that simple to get back over the threshold, or we'd do it. We try. But the nurse that suspects it, you have to report it to your manager. And if your manager doesn't do anything, then go above your manager. The hospital doesn't do anything, report it to the board. And when you report to the board, it's anonymous, and they're just going to check it out. And if they investigate and don't find anything, then they move on. So it's nothing. You're not, don't feel guilty thinking that you're going to make me lose my license. You might just save my life, and that is okay. But do not waste drugs. I know we're busy, and we just put in our numbers and go on. But I banked on that, My all of my patients were getting medications as soon as they were ordered, as needed, all the time, because I was feeding my own. And but you've got to witness. We're supposed to eyewitness. We just have to start doing that, because I know a lot of us don't, because we're busy.
Yeah.
Say something.
Definitely. What would you say, some people might suspect, of other ones, but what are the signs that a fellow nurse could look for when finding out if another nurse is abusing drugs at the facility? In a previous discussion that you and I had, you said that your mother said that you didn't look like a drug addict. You didn't look like any of these people when you went to, the meetings and everything like that. So what are the signs? They might be harder to see. So what would you say, especially in travel nursing? We discussed this too, is, you're moving from hospital to hospital, it's harder to catch on. So what are the signs that you would say?
Um, for me, I mean, I work the night shift, so I mean, but nodding off. Um, also, just an abundance of wasting medication. I dropped it, it broke. The vial didn't have a cap on it. And granted, that happens sometimes, but not with the same nurse over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
There's something going on, you know. Um, and I mean, just behaviors. We're nurses. We've got compassion. We're supposed to we observe things, And if you're seeing something that doesn't add up, it's okay to say something. You're not. I wouldn't have gotten reprimanded if there wasn't a reason to reprimand me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're not doing anything wrong, we're not going to mind being under the spotlight. You know. And as far as the traveling, I mean, that was the reason I started traveling initially, because I'm like, I can, by the time they catch on, I'm out. But I got real sloppy, and but that's what we end up doing. We end up getting sloppy. It's not. My manager said it usually lasts about 2 years before they start catching on and asking questions.
Oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That definitely makes sense. Now, moving on, as a travel nurse, I know a recruiter doesn't have as much contact with their nurses like, your coworkers and people that you work with. But what would you recommend for a recruiter to do if they suspect, or, how can they kind of figure out if one of their nurses is using, or, kind of like what they need to kind of think about and do?
I think with recruiters, if managers are reporting suspicious behavior, send for drug tests. And I think that a lot of the times, I mean, we're looking at money versus, you want to get a body in somewhere to where you're getting that money, and, but
Yeah.
if there's a nurse that's getting the same complaints at every hospital over and over again, don't just ignore it and see if it happens at the next place. Start doing random drug tests. We all know that getting in the business that it's random drug tests,
Yeah.
But they really don't do random drug tests unless you're suspected of something.
Yeah.
I just think that should be a lot more prevalent in our field.
Oh,
They
yeah.
do it with firefighters and policemen, and there's drug addiction there too. But again, it's hard to admit it because we're held, in the public eye, we're held at a different standard. So you start admitting stuff like this and you're human, people don't know how to feel about it.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And two, I think with, COVID and, this past 2, almost 3 years, I think people have turned a lot to substance abuse, and they went through a lot. Everyone did. And it was a very scary time. So I think, especially now, anybody that's out there that, kind of slipped into that, like, well, it's just going to get me through this 12-hour shift, or it's just going to get me through, this big old pandemic that was going on. I think that, you might be in a tough spot right now, and Misty is definitely here to help. We have our stuff scrolling at the bottom, and you can reach out to her. And if you want to reach out to the Gypsy nurse for us to put you in contact with Misty as well, we can do that too. Misty, is there anything else that you want to add about, your story, or anything that you want to say to anybody out there?
I'm so grateful that you guys just were interested in this topic. I do think that, and that, my fear was, whether if I come on here, not only how am I going to be perceived, but as far as, just other nurses that I work with, or the board of nursing here, or, but I've already been held accountable to the board of nursing here. And then this morning when I was getting ready, 12-step programs talk about, for us to help, the person that's still suffering. And if that means that, I have to pay the price somewhere down the line just to save another life, then that's what I'm willing to do. And, with COVID, all sorts of 12-step meetings were shut down. Luckily Zoom, talk about divine intervention, I think, is for, Zoom to be set up before all of this stuff even happened. But people weren't getting to meetings. People weren't able to get together and share. And that's what keeps a lot of us clean, But so I know that, the spike in addiction and suicide and that all that stuff in the last 2 or 3 years has just, skyrocketed because of the pandemic, But I just hope that somebody hears my story today, and whether it's somebody that you're thinking of, or if it's yourself, or if you just need to share it, use me.
We appreciate that. We appreciate your bravery. Like I said at the beginning, like you said, it takes a lot to, get up here and, your peers and what everyone thinks. But I think, just showing that bravery and just being that person that anybody can really come to. I think, it might be scary at first to come on here, but I think this really opens the door for more people to reach out to you and use you as a resource and be like, hey, you went on, live and did it. So, I can speak to somebody in private about it. So we really, really appreciate it. Yay. And then if there's any questions, we'll wait a few minutes, see if any questions come through. We do have Misty's information scrolling at the bottom. So if you don't want to ask any of those questions, you can email her or message her on Instagram. She'll be happy. So
I'm going to see if there's any questions here on the Instagram. I don't have anything yet, but that doesn't mean it won't come through. Mm-hmm. But yes, anything, anytime, you can message me. You're very welcome.
We do have some people saying thank you so much for speaking on this tough topic and sharing your story with us. Thank you for sharing your story, an important story for travel nurses. Thank you for doing this. So we do really, really do appreciate it. And, write an article on the gypsynurse.com too. So be sure to check that one out and read it. It has a little bit more of her story and more about her.
And I've got a couple more, do you call them articles, blogs? What do you call them?
Hey, articles, blogs.
Okay.
Articles, we usually call them articles, but
I've got a couple more articles that I'm doing for you guys too. There's one in July, and I think the next one is August, I believe.
That's
so
awesome. We appreciate
it. Kind of go into a little bit more of the reporting process, and then and another thing too, I think would be great is that I've got 3 or 4 nurses that were in my support group that would come on and speak to. So just kind of see where it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to have them on. Well, if there are no questions, we're going to go ahead. We have one question. Any books you would recommend on addiction that may be helpful?
For me, it would be a 12-step book, either, Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous. If you're the one suffering from addiction. If not, I think it would just be, for looking at other people, just like, Al-Anon or something like that, that just kind of shows you how to handle the people that you love that are suffering from the disease. Yeah. That's another thing real quick too. When they first told me that I had a disease, I was like, that's a cop out. That's a cop out. And, because even after getting through all this, I'm like, it's something that I could control. And that's just because of me beating up on myself. But once I came to the reality that, addiction started way before I even put that first drug in my body. When I was 12, 13, 14, I shoplifted all the time. Still, that's some type of a thrill, that I'm, putting myself out there for. And, but, anyway, Steve, if you got any other questions, you can email me or send me something on Instagram. That would be awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, and we look forward to having you on more, and maybe bringing some friends and some other nurses, and then look forward to your articles as well. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough. Thank you everyone for joining and watching, and stay tuned for more from Misty. Thank